Welcome to Mocktails and Masterpieces with the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra.
Greetings, ICO friends. Matthew Kraemer here with another Mocktails and Masterpieces, and I'm joined by our great artistic partners at Dance Kaleidoscope, Joshua Blake Carter and Sean Aaron Carmon. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Happy we're back at our collaboration.
This is our favorite, without question. This, I believe, is our fourth iteration of this partnership. Sharing the stage with you is one of the great joys. And I was just joking that of everyone that's in the attendance and our musicians on stage, I'm the only one that can never see what's going on behind me because my back is turned to the orchestra. But that's not entirely true because I always get a glance over and then I watch the video afterwards. But it's such a pleasure to perform with you because it really is, we use this word a lot, a synergy on stage with having dance, beautiful costumes, lighting, the choreography, live music. I imagine performing with live music must be quite a joy for dancers.
Absolutely. And it's after this collaboration, I hear for at least one full year about, oh, we need more live music. We need, from the audience and our audience surveys, because there's nothing like it for the dancers, but then the audience too, to feel that live music wash over the whole experience.
Whether it's the storybook ballet
yeah.
every year, I have a Nutcracker in Pennsylvania, Romeo and Juliet's, the Coppelias, or particularly when we're on stage performing with you, music perhaps that was never intended to be danced to, like Dvorak 9, which we had, I know, 2 years ago. But you've in the midst of a very busy moment right now. I wonder if both of you could share with us some of the highlights of the current season that you're in. I know that you perform all the way to June, so there's still much to look forward to. But what have been some of the high marks so far?
Sure. Well, we started our season in September, and we had Robin Minetko Williams, who is a former dancer with Hubbard Street in Chicago, and a work that I had seen of hers premiere on Hubbard Street, actually, I want to say in 2017. Called Cloudline. So we presented that on our fall season, and we're doing an encore performance of it in June. And then on that same program, Sean premiered a new work called Quorum that he had workshopped with some of his fellow dancers at Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. And then I asked him, I said, well, could you expand on it and make it a fuller, longer work for Dance Kaleidoscope? Then from there, we went to Palm Springs and did a choreography festival. Both Sean and I presented work there. And then we came back and got ready for our February shows, which we presented Robert Battle for, again, Sean's old boss from Alvin Ailey. So he came in and did a work called Train that originally, again, premiered on a company I'd seen in Chicago. And no one does this work. And I'll let Sean speak to, about this a little in a second too. But we reached out to Robert about coming in, and he said, oh, well, I've got these certain works. And I said, I want to look at Train, and he said, well, nobody stages Train. I don't have anybody to stage it. And I said, hold on. And I have still in touch with some of the original cast members and reached out, and we were able to make it work. So that was a really exciting point in our last show. And then we also have a Jaffe and Hall Emerging Choreographer Award. And it's named after Cherry Jaffe and Ginger Hall, who were David Hochoi's predecessors. And so it's to foster and nurture people who are in that emerging space in their career as choreographers, which doesn't necessarily mean you're 22. You can be 52 and emerging in as a choreographer. So, and I like to be clear about that because a lot of people really do wait. They really focus in on dancing and then transition at different points. So that's been us up until now. And so now, of course, Sean will be the world premiere on this upcoming collaboration performance, which is exciting. And then at the end of the season, I'm doing a collaboration with Jordan Munson, a local musician here, who is very different than what we do with the ICO. He's much more in that electronic music space. And he will be performing live with us. So those are my highlights. I'll let you chime in.
I think you tapped each one of them. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah, there really is much more to add besides the fact that Joshua choreographed as well for our last set of performances, Volume 2. with which just a smorgasbord is the word that I like to use, because truly it was all over the map, but somehow he found a way to tie it together. I mean, truly it went from Nancy Sinatra to Charlie Feathers to just so many different genres of music, and blending styles and electronica, because I believe you use I can't think of the composer's name.
Sorry, Kelly Lee Owens.
There you go.
I couldn't think of it either.
Kelly Lee Owens. But there's so much in that one, and I think the whole point of me bringing that up is just that there's such a range. And he worked. He's not here right now. He worked in a very strange way for himself, where he had to really. There was so much going on in the organization, and just in, I assume, his life that he had going. And then we had the holidays, then we had injuries, then we had just so many things on top of on the plate of the artistic director, as well as the guy who's trying to choreograph at the same time. So I try to bring it up every now and then, because he won't, but he should be very proud of himself. I would count that as a highlight, because he overcame quite a bit to get that on stage, and the audience received it very, very well.
So much appreciation for the incredible spectrum of music that you embrace. I mean, we're talking about, Dvorak 9, which I mentioned, which is a staple of 19th century symphonic repertoire. And then you'll go right into the Beatles or ABBA, or just some of the things that I've seen over the years that have been so wild and so creative to come up with all that. So this is a perfect point, I think, to share a little bit of our last collaboration with our audience, so they could see, if they were not in attendance, what they can expect: the spectacle on stage, lights, costumes, choreography, and the orchestra as well. This upcoming program in April, the 3 performances that we have, I think that this is certainly the most unique in repertoire, because we're focused with our 250th anniversary of the United States on an American program, but not just an American program. 2 living minimalist composers, 2 of the most famous composers that we have in this country now. And this music is striking. John Adams and Philip Glass I'm talking about. So Joshua, I'll start with you, because your piece opens the program. John Adams does shaker loops.
Yes.
I can come at it from a performer's perspective. This is very complicated music rhythmically, because it's so repetitive, and it's very easily in most of Adams's music to get lost if you're not very, very careful on the page, because there aren't big melodies to latch onto as you would in Gershwin, or et cetera, et cetera. So first of all, I'm very curious how the impetus for this piece, well, the selection of it,
I'm looking for new music. I'm playing iTunes, and I'll put on a station. I'll go to Max Richter or Olafur Arnold, some of these people that are, contemporary composers, and that I know I like, and I'll say, make a station for me so that I can hopefully find some new stuff. And this Adams piece came across, and I actually had to kind of stop what I was doing to go look to see what it was, because of the looping technique he uses, or that he's inspired by, I should say, that was happening in recording studios at the time. It almost has a electronic sound at first. There's some influence that reminds me of current electronic music. So it made me go, what is this? And that's when I did a deeper dive and went into exploring what the entire the entire 4 movements were and how that sounded. In a work like this being so expansive, and it really does, I mean, from movement, specifically movements, 1 and 3, those are just like, you're all over. It's such a journey. Movement 2 is so minimalist. There's so much air in the music and space that it's almost daunting to think of it as a full story. And it's really not a story. I really wanted to make a dance that reflected the the soundscape, and that you really truly saw the notes come to life in the dancers' bodies. So I started at the beginning. Thankfully, Sean was by my side. I'm very much a let's make dance and see where it sticks. And he's like, no, no, we're going to count this. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for that. Uh, so, going through and just truly just building it from the beginning, going all the way through to the end. I did find some inspiration in the fact that John Adams grew up near a defunct Shaker community. And I found this at some statement I found online that he had written about the piece. So, the shaker part came from the shaking of the bow, of course, on the strings, but also he thought it was a nice little nod to his childhood growing up near this defunct community. So Terry, our costume designer, and I worked together to look at some of these old shaker traditional, I say costumes. They were actually just their regular clothes.
Right.
We made them into costumes, but then deconstructed them to be much more current and much more. I don't know that shaker and sexy go in the same sentence, but a little sexier, a little more sensual in their design. And then another component of this as well is that the recording that I found had some really beautiful minimalist cover art that translated into I gave to Laura Glover and said, can we do this as part of our lighting design? So there are these really cool tubes that are suspended from the ceiling or from the proscenium that start back on an angle, and throughout the piece they move and flatten out, which we will also have with the orchestra, which will be pretty cool. So yeah.
That's awesome. And this is, as you mentioned, it has been performed already. So to do it with live orchestra, we're really excited because it's a terrific piece for strings, originally for string septet and now for string orchestra. And then we have the Philip Glass, the third portion of Glass Pieces, which, as I understand it, was taken from his opera Akhenaten by Jerome Robbins. And there's the history there with that. Sean, what can we expect with your performance here, your choreography?
You can expect to be entertained. I think that's the general understanding. I like to say that's the general understanding of most of my choreography, because I do believe it's very hard for me not to quote Alvin Ailey, just because I spent most of my career there. But I also think it's just so relevant and poignant. He said that the audiences that come to the theater, they want to be entertained. And so it is one of my goals anytime I create work to make sure that it is entertaining in some way, whether it's moving, whether it's thought-provoking, whatever it may be. I want the audience to leave saying that, well, I really was entertained by that work. I've called this piece City on Fire. I've had it in my head for quite some time. Joshua asked me about creating it a little bit before last season was over. And I started thinking, because we were thinking about composers and, celebrating the 250th of America. And I went through quite a long list. I always start, I'll be very, very transparent. I always start with Black composers, because I do feel that 250 years ago, America was not in the place that it is now. And I won't comment on where we are now, but I'll leave that for the listeners to have their opinions and thoughts. But I started there, and I kind of wove my way around Duke Ellington, and I went to some Black female composers. I even went to as far as Dizzy Gillespie, because I really was thinking of what this program needs. But curatorially, it just didn't really make the most sense with our John Adams, and then knowing that we were going to do George Gershwin. The journey didn't make enough sense for us. So we went back and forth quite a bit, and we ended up landing on Philip Glass. And you're absolutely right, Akhenaten, the funeral scene. And I have danced to it in 2006 by a choreographer in New York. And it's been in my head. And I have a rule. If I've heard the song, if I've danced the song, or I've seen choreography to it, I cannot create to it for 10 years at least. So I've been patiently waiting. It's been on a playlist. And when we came around to Philip Glass, I said, all right, I think it's time to go ahead and do it. So for me, as I said, it's called City on Fire. And I take that title from Stephen Sondheim's musical Sweeney Todd, which has a song in it also called City on Fire. And it is just, there's so much social commentary in the song. There's so much literal and figurative symbolism and things that are happening in the moment. And that is what I see. I see this level of chaos because it's a Sondheim musical. So there is always, especially in his music, there's always a level of chaos, but somehow within that chaos, there is a beautiful structure. So I'm seeing a lot of linear movements, there's really no storyline. And the dancers will also be in sneakers. So we're really I'm trying something different. I'm going to hope that the squeaks of the sneakers do not ruin the beautiful work that the ICO is going to be doing, so that the audience can hear what you are playing, and hopefully we can minimize the squeaks. We might have to put some suede soles or something on the bottom. But yeah, it's definitely inspired by a cityscape. And I spent a lot of time in New York, almost 20 years living there. And so it's not particularly a storyline, it's more abstract, but definitely inspired by that pounding, driving, almost ritualistic music that Mr. Glass created.
That's amazing. And then we close our program with Artistic Director Emeritus's choreography, David Hochoy, for American in Paris, which is one of the great works for orchestra. And then, of course, 1951 film with Gene Kelly. This is, again, I'm not exaggerating here, our favorite collaboration every time that we get to join you on stage for these three performances, April 17th, 18th, and 19th. If you don't have tickets already, please jump online, make sure you get them because they sell very quickly, I know. Joshua and Sean, it's a pleasure to chat with you. And I know you're deep in rehearsals right now. You've got a gala as well. So I don't know where you find the time to sit down 20 minutes with me, but thank you for that.
Of course, thank you. And we're so excited to get into the space and just feel that synergy. That's your word from earlier, that synergy that we all create. So
absolutely. We're going to close here with a little bit of the choreography, your performance of Shaker Loop. So thanks very much, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you.